thanks for coming in. This is wild. Everything last minute. I appreciate everything in here. I wanted to do this with Tony. Actually, more than anything, I'll just virtually introduce Tony because like he built Death Ball. Bumble Bash is actually big for me. The last Bumble Bash that we had in Chattanooga was the one that I actually decided to actually start being more serious about game design and actually start building my game. I was invited into the Tony had that makeshift roundtable. Let's get together
The
for all developer roundtable, which is something that I've never been in before, and it was wild because I never considered myself to be a game developer in any way, and that was the first time I felt included into something like that. And I was like, okay, well I guess I am now. Gotta make the game now. So that was cool. So again, I really appreciate Bumble Bash. I know y'all do a lot of work. And Tony built Death Ball. Tony's one of the most positive people about indie arcade. He always talks about how, I remember even that meeting, he talked about how like the pie itself is not one that we slice, it's one that actually gets bigger, and that we can, and there's so much that we can do, and we can actually decide what this space is. And I really like that idea. And I just love Tony. I don't know what else to say. And honestly, I wanted to have this talk with him because I just wanted to ask him questions, and I wanted to see what he thinks about how he felt about his journey and how he felt on how the game was, like his perspective, because I feel like he was very, very similar to me because he played Killer Queen, but in the West Coast, and I didn't know about Tony, and I was like, okay, well, he's just another guy who's very hyped up about the game. But I also played on the East Coast, and we played in tournaments, but we didn't really cross paths until like Bumble Bash and stuff like that. Until he actually built Death Ball, and I was like, okay, cool, we actually have interest, which is a cool thing about Bumble Bash in general is that you end up meeting a lot of people that you have a lot in common. So I'll get started, and this talk in general is a little bit dry, but there's pictures and there's a cat picture, so I'll get to that. I think I already said enough, so I'm not gonna say more. But no, again, like thank you all. I know, like Bumble Bear, y'all doing a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. So we're not here if it wasn't for y'all, and I know, you'll walk away.
We wouldn't be here without you guys, so
that's also fair. Also fair. Okay, enough with the thanking of y'all. Okay. Yep, and y'all are doing your best. So when I was trying to do this talk, I didn't want to just come here and say like, oh hey, come here and buy Crab Volleyball. I mean, yeah, that's probably what I should be doing, and yes, buy Crab Volleyball. But I really enjoy what people make, and I really want to see what they make. Like when I think about like my favorite, like movie directors, favorite game designers, favorite musicians. They made their money and maybe they moved on, maybe they didn't make their money and they moved on, but I felt like they always made an impact on us, and they made something that is bigger than something that we can measure in currency. And I also think that someone like, let's say Prince, for example, like if it wasn't like no one else can make the same songs that Prince made. Where like you compare that to like products or I don't know, computers or something, like technology, someone else can eventually make a technology that is similar, but it's that human print that is special. And I think the motivation that I have out of this is that whatever you're working on, I just want you to continue to work on it. It doesn't have to be games. And I think people would want to see it. And I feel that way about Crab Volleyball to some extent, where I don't think anyone else might have been able to make Crab Volleyball. Is it going to be successful? But it is going to be different enough from anything else that anyone else out there will make. So that is why I'm making the talk. But I kind of want to give you, why I want you all to be here. This is my selling point more than anything. I'm kind of starting from the end from this here. So here's the agenda. Introductions. Now I can't introduce Tony, so I have to have an empty chair next to me, just to show. Some early inspirations on why I made crab volleyball. I'll actually, now that I'm reading the room, I think I'll probably dig deeper into like some, I'm kind of changing things in my mind now. Gonna talk about prototyping. I think this room, y'all probably know more about me about prototyping, but I'll talk about my experience on how I prototype things. I was thinking maybe some, like maybe KQ players who would want to like see some stuff, and I have some pictures, and I just want to kind of like show the like how to prototype and how to get started. Sadly, didn't get much from the game itself, and honestly, there's not much from the game, but I got much from the physical aspect of things, which is really cool. Playtesting and receiving feedback, and then going to market. That's, I don't know if that's the right business term, but I wanted a term just to like, what is the business side of this? And I actually kind of wanted to talk to Tony about this too, because I don't think we might probably turn this into maybe a table or something, but I'll say my take, and then also I'll talk about future steps for what crab volleyball is. Introductions. I'm laughing about the next slide already. Yeah, and I'll bring it back. So my name is Ammar Ahmed. I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't like. It's interesting when people get asked who they are. They forget about like the unique things about them. So one thing that is unique about me is that I moved here when I was 17, and I actually didn't speak English until I was 18ish. So I moved here from Sudan. My family's here. Everything is great. So I have a different background where I played video games internationally before I came in. I'm a huge gamer, and that continued even more when I moved to the US, and then I didn't have a lot of friends, I guess, like the same friend group with me. So I ended up like falling for games more as my social and networking aspect. And that was tough still, because it was actually hard to find places to play games until I hit college. And then college is just like, yeah, like here's other nerds everywhere, and let's just do LAN parties and play I actually started StarCraft 2 organization. I'm an organizer by nature. I like to get people together, but not so much like being good at the games. There was actually when we signed up for my school's StarCraft team, there was a glitch where it said that I was a Grandmaster, which is like the highest level player, and it showed me as the best player. Everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, whatever you want to do, we just want to win." And then they were like, "Oh no, sorry, it's just a glitch," and they were like, and then they stopped talking to me. But I still organized the team. It was fun. So.
Reverse imposter syndrome.
Yeah, that was a bummer. But I was surprised why everyone was like listening to me too. And I was like, okay, well now I know it's the glitch. They think I'm a grandmaster. So gaming was always a place for me to like escape. Really, like I always saw gaming as something that is more than just a hobby. It's always been a passion. Like I don't even watch movies. I don't even like listen to music or anything like that, but I nerd out about games. Always have been. And was listening to a podcast on my way here, right? Like it's just like about gaming. It's always things about video games that I'm listening to. And then for fun, I'm just even listing things here. Like I watch a lot of YouTube videos about games. I watch a lot of GDC videos. I watched Wonderville videos, I guess, on Twitch. I was actually the most person watching stuff. So like, I love like all the content. So yeah, in the arcade wave, love watching all your videos. By the way, just plug that one in there as well. And I guess for the real introduction, I work for banks. So that's kind of what I do in my day job. Not a full-time game developer yet, but hopefully one day. And I think that is funny that I work with banks and me watching videos and this is not a video, but in 2015-ish, 2016, there was a talk by Nick and Josh for GDC. It's on the Vault, it's on YouTube. And then someone goes on there and asks like, how do you make money out of arcades? Nick, do you remember what you responded to
I
him?
can't remember what I ate for breakfast.
I think the answer was something like, you get a job at a bank, and you make as much money as you can, and then with the free time, you work on the game that you want to work on. And I thought that was awesome, because that's honestly my life right now, and it's cool. And it's just cool that like that's the advice. I found the video and I just watched it just to make sure, but I'm not gonna say the name of the bank, YouTube. But again, like I nerd out about a lot of videos, and it's awesome that something like GDC has a lot of videos online because it kind of gives me accessibility to be able to like learn without having to like join that closed circle that is super expensive, that is having to afford to go to San Francisco and get in and all of that. So that is, I don't know if that is why they made a lot of the videos public now, but it has actually been a super helpful thing for me while I'm making games. So with that, and by the way, great talk. All of your talks have been great. Y'all perfect presenters. So I want to talk about inspiration for crab volleyball. And I wish actually I added more pictures of just like, yeah, fun stuff. So this is more dry, but hey, I have something. So one thing about me is that other than video games, I really love volleyball. Like, I think volleyball is the best sport, hot take. It is fun to watch, which I know is it's one of the top 10 in the world naturally. It's one of the top 10 sports in the world. And on the Olympics, it's very popular. Both sand and indoors. Actually, indoors is more popular than sand. I came in from indoors. I played indoors again. Just found a meetup group. How did I start playing volleyball? I went to the beach after college, needed a sport, and then went back home. Asked the same friends to play volleyball with me. They said no. They showed up and then they didn't care. And then I wanted to like get better, and I ended up playing volleyball around Charlotte. And I think the cool thing about volleyball is that it actually translated quite well to Killer Queen, where it's the same ideas where you still have to organize a group. That's a common idea where like you have to organize a group, you have to all together show up to have an activity. And if you don't have like the full number, then you have to figure out a way to balance. You balance between the teams, and then you have different roles within volleyball. There's the setter, is like almost like the quarterback from a football perspective, and then actually a lot of my friends who were playing volleyball, we ended up finding places to hang out at after, and we ended up finding our bar at the time they had Killer Queen, and my dad is calling me. But we ended up going to play Killer Queen, and it just clicked for us. The whole idea of having different roles and being able to like play a game that has different roles was kind of a cool concept, and we actually won the first tournament, I think in Charlotte, where we just ended up playing like everything. I play objective, and which translates on volleyball because even though I'm tall, I'm actually like to play like in the back. I actually like to chase the ball and stuff like that. So I felt like that's kind of like a drone in Killer Queen. And there was a lot of that aspect. So that's kind of how I actually got into Killer Queen and how I actually built up this competitive aspect of wanting to play within a community and do something together. And I find it cool because for Killer Queen, I actually see people coming in with their friends, and they come in from disc golf actually, and they were showing each other, and they were like, oh, like yeah, there's this game, and the people who won the first tournament are from a disc golf community. So it's cool that you can have a sport that translates to a video game, and then once people find a place where they can hang out, drink together, and do another social activity together, then they would actually love that game even more. And as you talk to people from Killer Queen, that's not a unique story. There's a lot of people with similar backgrounds who played. Is it frisbee golf? What's the football game with frisbee?
Ultimate.
Yeah, ultimate frisbee. There's a lot of people play ultimate frisbee, for example, that I met. And it's just people coming from different backgrounds that is still like groups of some sorts. But to go to Killer Queen, I want to talk about kind of like the inspiration of why I made a volleyball game. So my hot take is that there's other than crab volleyball, there's no game out there that really captures what volleyball is to me. And that is such a nerd thing to say, because I know so much about volleyball that I don't think anyone else would understand. And I can go on and on about like smaller things, like with volleyball, it's not about like the actual touching of the ball itself. It's being at the right place at the right time at all time. So you can play a full game of volleyball without touching the ball, and technically it would still work out because you would be running around always being ready. And that focus and needing to just know where everything is and knowing where to be is something that I wanted to capture for crab volleyball. And that's really the measurement that I have as far as whether the game is good or not. And all the balancing and the stuff that I did has been around, am I capturing the good parts about real volleyball? And the reason why I removed a lot of, so that's the other thing, that's another benefit of having video games is saying, okay, well now I mimicked real volleyball. Like let's say y'all trust me that I did mimic real volleyball. How can I make it better? We're not limited by the physical aspect of volleyball. There's a reason why there's 3 touches. One of the most annoying things about real volleyball is sometimes you don't know if the ball went in or out. There's accessibility problems where if you're not tall, you're gonna struggle. And it's just like a lot of things that when you are making a game, you can just go around that. So remove things like the free touches, remove things like the outside, that's why there is walls around. And it's unlimited touches, and I'm just adding stuff like that. And then at that point, it doesn't even become it's not volleyball anymore, and I get that. And it becomes its own sport, and that's crab volleyball. And I'm like, okay, well, yes, it is a video game, but kind of played differently. And people tell me like, yeah, there's other sports outside. There's other sports, there's a lot of sports that have one ball that, racquetball, tennis, and so on. And if you try to, and I was like, let me capture as much from all the other sports that have a ball in them and see what I can add. But I kind of stay with volleyball and stay with that. And that's actually, I'm kind of like already talking about the kind of like the digital prototyping here. I think my story for this one is, and I think everyone here kind of has like a technical background, so it doesn't really relate as much. But I was gonna say like, I know like I have the advantage of being a software developer, and that is like a skill that I can cash in. But games on their own is not something that like has to be a video game. And if they were more like with KQ players, I tell them like to some extent they are when you pick something and you try to make more joy and fun out of it, you're kind of making a game. And within Killer Queen itself, to like just give some examples, there are games made in the Killer Queen community that is outside of the actual game that is made by Bumble Bash, and that is the tournament, like the tournament format. Do you trying to do a draft tournament? How do you make that part fun? And then there's things like tandem play, where you have 2 people playing, one moving and one pressing the button. That's a complete different game that is designed outside of Killer Queen that is still a game. And I wanted to mention that because I think a lot of people don't think of stuff like that they can add as like game design, but they are. Even if it's just them being a ref and trying to organize a fun tournament. I have to plug them in. One of the most fun experiences I had with Killer Queen was someone had the idea of bringing a die and throwing the die, and that would determine the number of drones that we would have on a team. So So we threw in the die-in, and we was 4 drones. We could not play warriors, and we ended up. And then there was a what do you call another die that is like 1 to 3, and that one determined the winning objective that we had. So we threw a die in. It was 4 drones. Threw the other one. It was a snail. So we had 4 drones, and we had to win by snail. And that was hilarious to us. And the reason why we did that at the time is because we had like a charity tournament and we wanted to self-balance. So we were like, okay, we'll add this other layer on top of the tournament itself, and that would just be our team, and we'll make some fun idea of how we play. And I still remember it. It was some of my most fun experiences. And that was not made by someone who was a game designer or a developer. But to go back to Crab Volleyball here, I like just to kind of go through the journey, follow a lot of YouTube tutorials. That's probably the recommendation that I would give to people. Make other people's games. I know it sucks. Everyone wants to like immediately jump off and make the best idea that they have in their mind, but you don't know the tools yet. So if you follow a YouTube series, you get comfortable with the overwhelming tool, whatever it is, and at some point it will just click and you will know that, okay, well, I have to watch one other video and do this. Crab Volleyball originally was I think a tutorial that was a breakout game. Breakout is the game that is like you have a block at the bottom and the ball just bounces up. And then added gravity to it, and at the time I wanted to, was like, okay, let's make a volleyball game. Like, I know a lot about volleyball. That's the topic that I know more than anyone else, well, more than most people, that I feel like I can bring something different that no one else can bring. So it was a break at the beginning. To go back to the GVC idea, I watched a video about, it was actually an NYU video, so some of y'all might know. It was a speaker, but it was about adding like a personality to the game, and it was about adding how if you humanize, like add eyes and a smile and stuff like that to a character, it will make it better. So I was like, okay, it was just 2 blocks, 2 rectangles with eyes on them, and then I wanted to show the game around, and I went to Baltimore, and Baltimore is known for crabs. And I was like, crabs are kind of perfect. So I added crabs, and they fit. And there's a talk about actually Plants vs. Zombies and why Plants vs. Zombies is a tower defense game, but the idea is that zombies are like slow and plants are stationary, and the reason why the developer picked plants is because they are stationary things, so visually it would be easy for people to recognize that, okay, once you put a plant in, you can't move it, and zombies are slow. So that's why it's called Plants vs. Zombies. And I thought with Crab Volleyball, I was like, okay, well, I need something that moves sideways and also silly and maybe belongs on the beach as well. Like, it fits a lot of things. A lot of people ask me, like, why crabs? And I'm like, crabs that kind of came into this and decided to take over the game. So I didn't make that choice myself. So that's kind of like I would say a lot of the digital aspect of the game. There are I'll talk more about the prototyping. I would say that with the process itself, like I made the game, let's see, I'll just kind of start with the physical aspect here. So yeah, so like, I made the game itself, and then it's a tradition that I take my work laptop, stuff that I'm not supposed to. But I took my work laptop literally with the game on it, and I, after work, kind of showed it around. The first time I showed it around, and again, this is a game that I made, and it was a game for me because there's no good volleyball games out there, hot take, that capture what I thought would be fun, right? Part of why I make games is because I really love video games to a point where I just want to tinker in them because I want to learn more about them more than anything. If someone else makes a game that is already a game that I had the idea of, I'm happy because I can move on and I can play their game. That's how I feel about it. But for Crab Volleyball, when I built it, I was like, okay, it's fun, but the problem is that like when you're volleyball, you need to play with people. So what I ended up doing, going to a house party, as my girlfriend says, I'm almost 40. I need to say it's a gathering, but it was a house party. It was actually the same friends who were like in the circle of playing volleyball and playing video games. And we had this thing where we would just play couch co-op games. And I was like, hey, I made the game. It works on 4 controllers. It's fine. Let's plug it in. We tried it, played it, and then I was not confident in the game at all. I was like, okay, that's fine. Okay, let's play something else. And then we were doing the rotation. Eventually, we ended up going back to crab volleyball. And some people that I never met played it, and they loved it. And that was weird to me, because I was like, I thought, I would expect my friends to, tell me that they love it and then they move on. I didn't think that my friends would think that it is good. I am not a confident person by default. So I was like, okay, if my friends, thank you, but that's because you're my friend. The people who I didn't know in there and wanted to play it more than all the other games was strange to me. And that was cool. That was validation that I would not have been able to get if I didn't just take my laptop and play it at that party. Then I showed it around in other places. I showed it in my workplace. It was terrible. We had a work gathering where a lot of kids would come in and everything. And I would take it around. Actually, I took it to some parties that I probably should not have taken them to. The context was just not there. But I was proud of it, and I was happy that I made something. And I was like, hey, I'm just gonna drop it, in a corner somewhere. And if someone plays it, they play it. The main reason why people were not playing it was there were 4 controllers, and it was complicated for them. It is something that I'm saying now, but at the time, I would remember people picking up a controller, pressing all the buttons, not knowing what to do, throwing it on, moving on. That's fine. And that's how it gets. And that's what led me to being like, okay, well, this is not a controller game. That's really I didn't start with a let me build, I want, an arcade game with someone. It was more of the controls need to be simple. And I need to make them simpler for people to be able to just come in and fully get the understanding of how the game is played. So that was kind of I would say the physical prototyping is seeing the need. The game was obviously good enough and fun enough, but I started with that. I'm gonna go toward the kind of the physical. And now there's pictures. So this is the first prototype ever. Was there anything before this? No, this was the first one. That's a box. So I just went on online retailer and I bought, if you Google, what is it? Arcade stick parts. Literally that's what shows up, I think, at the bottom. In here it will show you kind of the controller and it has instructions. And you would plug it into a computer, and it would show as a joystick. Of course, that's after watching a lot of videos that I didn't know. So everything that I'm saying here, if I'm making it sound simple, just know that there was a lot of research in between. So this was the first prototype. The reason why this prototype is important is because I wanted the perfect layout, in my opinion, for how to play the game. Once I realized that it's an arcade game, it freed up the space that now I have full control over everything that I can do. It's something that you don't get with consoles. And I was like, okay, now I have the control. What is comfortable? So there were multiple prototypes like this one, and it was just easy, plug in the holes and try to play them out and see what works, trial and error. I don't think anyone actually played this. This would just be at home, just goofing around. Then eventually I ended up going to Target and I bought a toy box, and I wish I brought them with me. But there were wooden toy boxes that for kids, and there's slides from the bottom, and I don't know what to explain. I don't even know why they are fun, but I think that you're supposed to put something inside there kind of thing. But during my Killer Queen tournament, we had a long tournament one day, I would go to the parking lot with a drill that has a I don't know, what's it, the saw, the circular saw, yeah. And I would drill like the holes into everything. And the reason why I was doing that is because I wanted to build Florida in a tournament that was coming up. So tournaments were good because just like conventions, they are really good deadlines. So signing up to something and then grinding up to the time and then hating yourself until you build it and finish it. And then you feel really good for a while afterward. That, I don't recommend that for everyone, but that has been a cycle that worked for me quite well. That's just crunch, I guess. So, but this was what I built. I built a joystick. I actually have another picture. And then I got people, instead of handing them controllers, I handed them boxes, and they were able to figure out how to play the game. And it was much easier. That was my laptop in the background. I bought a laptop that flips because I was sick of. I was worried that someone might spill a beer into my work laptop. So that's what happened there. There is a money investment, not gonna lie, but we'll get to that in the business piece. Most important slide here, a cat. There's actually a video, sorry I wasn't able to find the video, but this was another video of me, this was another picture of me just continuing to take it to house parties and people places. It's not my cat. The people played, and the cat was hilarious because he was trying to chase the ball. So that was just beautiful. One prototype that I tried, and I'm gonna go a little bit faster here because it's actually, I realized I put a lot of pictures. Those are arcade one-ups that I bought from Facebook Marketplace. They're still sitting in my place. I'm really bad. It's much easier to buy stuff than to sell, I realized. So I have both of those in my place. But I did plug in Crab Volleyball to them because I wanted to get a feel for how they look in an arcade, and it was a good start. And I took these two cabs to a tournament in Columbus. Again, I was continuing to kind of like take the advantage that is being around a lot of people who play video games at tournaments, the Killer Queen community, to like show the games. Now, I'm not gonna lie, like they would rather play their game first. They'd rather play Killer Queen first, finish Killer Queen. Once they are done with Killer Queen, then they would play other stuff, and it's hilarious to me because it's like you have the game showing and you're like, hey guys, come on in, but they are just there for Killer Queen and they would love it. But then they would hang out and they would play all the other games. So I remember that was the first tournament that I ran for Crab Volleyball. It was using those two cabs. And a lot of people just came and was like, crabs, let's play. And they would eat, and it was just mayhem. It was at CQ in Columbus, which was like a private venue, so we were able to do whatever we wanted to do. That was cool. So once all of this was kind of like fizzling, and I was like, okay, I like this idea, like what is next? I wanted to actually build something that is also portable. I was actually gonna build what I have outside, which is just like kind of like the control panel, but I just went online, looked around, and I like how I didn't delete the word prototype there, but which makes it extra prototype. This was, so I signed up for another deadline, signed up for MagFest, and I said I'll take a cab, and I spent the second half of the year building the cab, and that was one that I bought off of Etsy. I never did any woodwork. I always wanted to build from scratch, but it's just hard. So I bought a kit. You can just buy all the wood and glue it together in your living room. So you're not gonna have any guests for a while. And then I took down into MagFest and worked on the holidays. So all the free times that I had was just towards stuff like this. This was a cool picture. I took it to the Baltimore tournament, which is probably, is that where we met? Probably?
I think so.
I took it to Baltimore twice. I took it with the controllers at first, and the game didn't work when I showed up there. That's a classic story. People gave me feedback. People from the Killer Queen community gave me actually feedback. There were some who were Wyatt and someone else who was also from NYU. Like, they talked to me about the game and why it should change. It's things that were obvious to them, but not for all. But yeah, I mean, this was the kind of like the bar top. It's a 4-player, and I just blocked off the other spots that I didn't use. And yeah, I guess that's really it. And I wish Tony was here because Tony was actually playing the tournament. He has the biggest pop-off where like him and Mario next to him, like they both took off their shirts and they were like just screaming because it was game point. One thing that I actually forgot to mention to you about volleyball is volleyball like brings out something out of people, and I think Killer Queen does too, and all games do, and that is just when people just become barbarians. And literally, there's a subreddit called Instant Barbarian, and it's like people just hanging out around, and let's say it's like the DVD cube, and then it hits the corner, and then everyone goes crazy. It's that like there's small things in life that we don't have a description for, and then just like when it happens, people just like scream and run away, and like, oh yes, this is it. That was something that I was like, I need to have that in crab volleyball. And every time I hear people yelling, I feel like that's it. Okay, I was like, okay. I'm glad. That's the how many barbarians per hour am I getting for a game. But that was a cool tournament that I was in, and okay. And I wanted to add this picture here because this was Southern Fried Gaming last year, and I want to say like I didn't have a spot. I didn't have a slot at all, and Bumble Bear was like, yeah, why don't you just have a corner of the table and just put your game in there, and that was cool. And the reason why it was cool, and I ended up going this year actually, and a lot of people told me that they remembered it from last year, and I just think it was cool that y'all just allowed me to just have something in the corner. It's wild. I also understand why. I feel like I understand both sides. Like you also try to help out other people because other people helped you, and I get that, and I really appreciate it. So wanted to add that slide on there because it actually had an impact because people remembered it. MacFest has been actually had two. There was another MacFest, but it's a bad picture of me. But everyone else looked fine, so I'm not a selfish person. But we do tournaments, and it's becoming popular in MacFest. Running tournaments is hard work, by the way, but it's something that is rewarding, so I'll just say yes, and then I end up going back to the room after the tournament is over and just lay down. But MacFest has been a blast. It's just been a party every time. There's one time when there was a DJ next to me, and people waiting for the games or watching the games were just dancing and having fun. That is something that has been cool. But I'm gonna focus on the physical aspect. Another house party with good food. This was Southern Fried Gaming, and this was finally like a production cap. So I'm glad now I showed you what started from a cardboard box into this. I ended up getting a table, paid for the table, and I only mentioned that because y'all gave me the stuff for free. And that is something that actually I took for granted with MagFest and other places. You actually have to pay to show your game. And it's a lot of money too. It's not like cheap because it's the same money as booths and so on. So if you get a free spot somewhere, take it and thank the people that gave you the spot for sure. Another reason why I kind of showed up here, I was like, it's kind of a no-brainer to show up to Bumble Bash. Like Bumble Bash has been like a good spot for not just like the people playing the game, but people getting something out of the game, and that is being able to like show the game and stuff like that, and networking, meeting people, and so on. Again, I started this whole journey from Bumble Bash 4, Bumble Bash 4. So it's wild that now took this long until now we have another Bumble Bash, but that's where I've been throughout this whole time. I'm gonna kind of like go fast here. Playtesting. All I gotta say is like kind of stay true to yourself and just know what you want to make. If you make something for yourself first, then you made it. But if you make it to other people and they have fun, that's even better. That's really the kind of like the quick of it. I had someone and I had that quote. Someone told me, I don't know how to explain. They said, I don't know how to explain it, but the crabs piss me off. And I'll tell you the names, but ask me later. Because he was like, yeah, that's kind of obvious. And it was a Click Quick player. And I actually kind of like
Newhouse?
Close. It was another person. But Rob would say that. I'm not going to say it on video. But I like actually hearing the feedback from the opposite side. So that's another thing with like bringing it to things like Killer Queen is that you know the people are here for Killer Queen. So when they play something else, you get that exception feedback. You know, they're not here to try out all the different games. So I feel like that has always been a kind of like a cool feedback. Another reason why Killer Queen is great is because while people are waiting to get a cap for Killer Queen, they're just sitting around wandering, with nothing to do. So it was a perfect spot for me to say, hey, I have a game, why don't you just play it? And then they do the thing of like, oh, sorry, it's my set, and then they run away. But honestly, again, to kind of like go back to playtesting and everything, just iterate and keep trying. See, I felt like no one really told me feedback. Like most of the feedback that people tell me is actually not that helpful, sadly. It's actually what I witness on what they do. And someone told me that like they were moving, they were not moving, and that was because like, for example, like the ball has weight, so the crab would move, and I was like, okay, you expected something different than what I expected, and then I get feedback like, can you like, I don't know, can you have the two crabs kiss a bit on top of each other? And I'm like, and I have a big list of things, and I'm like, I'll put in there, and I like that. Actually, yeah, maybe high five, but yeah, it's like small things that I try to add. And I'm sorry, but I added hats out of spite for Killer Queen.
You go like every other game in the world.
But it was like intentionally being like, I'm gonna add hats just as an extra. And I have a Bumble, and that's actually has kind of been a cool thing for me because I can add more personality to the crabs themselves. So, and when I tell a bar that, hey, I'm gonna have a game in your bar, I'm gonna have a hat in there. When they know that you can personalize something specific to their location, it kind of becomes an extra selling point that I actually didn't think of. But it actually also kind of been fun. And then the people who are there, they recognize it and kind of works out. So that's an advice that I think kind of might want to throw out there.
Is this your pitch for us putting hats in Killer Queen?
And then for the next slide,
like this whole presentation is leading to this point.
And this is everything that I don't like about Killer Queen. The next, I'm joking. So the business piece, and actually, I was hoping Tony would be here to really help me out with this. It's hard out there. That's all I gotta say. I think more than anything, I appreciate all the indie game developers more. I feel like I understand all of the indie devs more and more. And now, more than anything, I'm like, oh wow, like compared to like the public entertainment companies that are out there, without saying name, like the indie scene is very ethical and very friendly to a level that is not like, and it needs to grow more because that we need to like set like that, like the path forward. Like someone will have to pick the path, and it will carve kind of like water on a mountain, and it finds a way. And it's kind of like there's like a bit of an obligation of like, okay, well, I guess we have to kind of make good, ethical, fun games that people need to play. And whether you choose it or not, it's like, okay, well, I'm making it. Okay, I'm part of it now. Now I have to support the scene around me. To kind of see like a better future, right, for all the other games as well. As far as like a market and sales and business, I'm terrible at all of that. I just want to say all of that. So I'll tell you what I did. I did a wish list, a kind of like contact me list, and actually kind of been working out great. I tell people, and so far all the caps, and it's going to be for the next 10. What I would probably tell someone who probably starting now is think about your first cap that you're trying to build as marketing. Work with the person. It's more important to put it out there, to put it in public, than it is to actually build it. And if you get it out in multiple places, that would help the word of mouth for the first few caps. And then after that, you can spread onward. But trying to build that connection with like a local person, local bar, or something has been crucial for me. I know for me it's like Zach from Abari, and that's because I've been a good customer who's been playing Killer Queen for a while and organizing stuff. He knew at least that I'm level-headed enough that if I put a game in there that I was actually showing already in his bar, that he would, be okay with me having it as an arcade cap. And then it does great, and then they're like, oh, we actually want a full cab, and that's what happened with the full cab that I had. So I had my cab out there. Then the other location, Transmission Arcade, I had the bar top. So it was sitting in my living room when it's not in MagFest. And I wanted it to be somewhere because I don't invite a lot of people in my place. So it was actually, I told him, like, can I just leave it in your bar? And he was like, cool. And free play. Cool, worked out. And then a lot of people loved it. Also, the bar top kept breaking because it wasn't built for public consumption. Eventually he was like, hey man, can I have this in here? You want to build me a full cab? And I was like, that's probably one of the best things I could ever have, yeah. And that kind of led me toward the let me go production level path. And now that's why I'm building other cabs. And actually I'm building 3 others now. And the way I say it, I kind of like treat it more like franchising to some extent, where it's not a sale, but I'm trying to also work with the person because I also want them to succeed. And I think that's just common. Like, I also want my game to be played. That's just kind of like a bit of ego. I want people to have fun with the game. That's honestly all I have. I have like 10 minutes left here, but which is such a work thing to say. But again, I'll go back to the most important point to kind of motivate anyone, is that, well, one, I love you all. Thank you all for being here. But I want to see your creative projects. Whatever you are making is unique. No one else will be able to make the same things that you have in mind. No one else. And whether it makes money or it doesn't make money, that's a different story. But it will be unique enough that that it will make an impact on someone else eventually. And you know what? People actually want to see it. So that's all I have. Questions, hot takes, I'll take them all right now.
So what do you do for the bank? So how do you go from that into doing game development?
That's a good point, because so some skills transfer, right? Like and like I read a book that kind of had the idea of like you have your skill set and then you cash in into your next thing that you want to do, right? So I'm thinking about all the skill sets about game dev and stuff like that I'm doing. Like, you know, like I know a lot about like API development, for example. Like I can cash in these skills into. I'm an IT manager, which I hate managing, so I'm never gonna go up from that because I just can't. And banks are tough. But yeah, I'm a software developer, and honestly, a lot of the work that I do has been luckily been around like .NET development. So I kind of picked Unity as a result of that. But right now, I'll tell you, I work with a lot of Excel sheets. So I think that is just there's so much that runs out of Excel sheets. So, but yeah, that's what I do. Okay, go. First, yeah.
So you mentioned that you were inspired by the Dev Roundtable.
Yes.
Is that the point where you started Crab Volleyball, or had you started it before?
So yeah.
I vaguely remember you bringing it to Florida, and I can't remember because I'm old whether that was
No.
after.
The timeline pre-Panini is really fuzzy. I agree. I think. So I don't think it's ever a one thing that is like, yes, it's this, right? It's a lot of just rubbing shoulders with people over time that kind of like puts you in the right circles that eventually makes it that when you want to do something, you actually end up doing it, right? I think I probably did build like a prototype before then.
I remember
He brought it to
It has to be.
He brought it to Queens Gone Wild after Bumble Bash.
Was it after?
Because I won that tournament, that's why I remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember whether.
Yeah, no, but that's valid. It's again, like while I say yes, it is like that circle had such an impact on me. That meeting had such an impact on me. It's not a one thing, right? Like I'm not just showing up to a room and be like, oh well, I'm motivated. You have to continue, because I like like the arcade stuff in MagFest had a big impact, right? Me walking around MagFest stuff and seeing all the indie arcades and being like, oh, actually people make those, because before that you just think that these things come out of nowhere and they just appear, right? Like there's a lot of that aspect. So, and then rubbing shoulders with people in the Killer Queen community actually. So one of the best advices that I had was from Turbo, and I told him, and he was like, I don't ever say that. But now he said, and I told him that I like video games, I like playing video games, but I don't finish anything. I end up just like prototyping until it gets to a point where it's not fun anymore, and I just drop it. And his advice was like, why don't you just put a game on Steam? Like, make it a goal to put a game on Steam, finish it, and doesn't have to be good, and just get to that finish line. And that was one advice that was good. BK also, like, I talked to him, he was showing the table, so again, rubbing a lot of shoulders over time kind of like helps makes it easier, but definitely that talk was like one of the few times where I was like, I'm it, right? Like I'm here, I'm a game dev, right? And I think that was, I don't know, like that was important just over time. Because I think I think everyone has the skill set, but they don't realize it until they pass the finish line, they look back and they say, okay, well, oh wow, I am a game developer. Like even I'm still now being like, oh, I'm a game developer, kind of thing. But only when you look back is when you realize. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And you had a question?
So you have a software engineering background.
Yes.
That's it. What did you do about art and sound and
Oh
music?
gosh,
and...
there's no art. So, I mean, yeah, good point.
Okay, it may be simple, but it's still art. So
No, that's a good point. And okay, so it is it was a rectangle, white rectangle. Like, okay, I want to know when the rectangle is up and down. Added eyes to it. Again, that's programmer art, right? Added eyes to it. It's like, okay, eyes have to have big eyebrows, so I know it's upside down. And then the crabs that I had were, where's the cat? I'm just gonna leave it at the cat. It was these crabs that I think I found some open source crabs, but they had extra arms around, and I wanted them to fit in a rectangle. And again, it's all these small steps, and then eventually I was able to be like, okay, now I can show someone this and be like, can you actually make this and make it a rectangle? And they were able to understand what I wanted. And that, okay, so that was during COVID. Oh wow. So we were, Mark, you would have to help me out here. But on so Wonderville's Discord was amazing, and I know. So I always wanted to say like I want to. Charlotte is a small game dev city, right? And I always looked up to New York as far as what they do, and I tried to copy that. When COVID happened, there was a lot of activity in the Wonderville Discord, which is the New York game dev Discord. As someone who doesn't live in New York, I took opportunity of the fact that there were all these people hanging out there. And I was like, okay. And then one of the people was actually showing their game, and they had some asset art for the tree and the sand for another game, and they put it online on their site. And I was like, hey, can I use your art? And it was someone showing, like, literally, I met him through that, right? I was like, hey, can I use your art? And they were like, yeah, it's cool, but the crabs would not fit the art that I have. What if I make the crabs for you? And I was like, oh, it's almost like I was trying to ask you that next. So, and then I literally paid, I was like, hey, I'll pay you for like 2 dinners or something. I don't know how to give money for someone because it's really hard to judge art by monetary value, and I still struggle with like, how much do I pay you for this kind of thing? Because if someone puts their heart into it, it's kind of hard. Anyway, but that's kind of how I got the art actually so far. That's all of the art that I have. Music. The theme is open source art. I wanted to make it ska music because no one appreciates ska music enough. And there's not a lot of games that have ska music, and it's a beach. So that's the main theme. Then there's a local band that I have in Charlotte that I'm a big fan of. They dropped an album that is like a sample pack. It's not an album. It's like you can sample these parts. They actually don't know yet, but it's called Cosmic Collective. And I've been a big fan of them, and I use all their sounds. And I'm gonna just go to them and be like, hey, like I have all your music. So one of the things I wanted to do was like a dynamic soundtrack. Again, this is me doing too much. Dynamic soundtrack, and that's like the crabs as you play the game. It makes sounds. another thing inspired by Bumble Killer Queen is that when you jump up, it makes a different sound, like higher pitch. And I was like, I want to add something like that. So it's higher pitch. I'm hoping that I will have like a higher pitch for like Simba or whatever, drums or whatever, based on where you are in the level, where the ball is, and the saxophone that plays. So that's what all the sounds are, kind of a lot of combination. The system of the dynamic soundtrack, that's coming soon. I'm still working on that.
In your prototype with the cardboard box, the
Yep.
first prototype.
Yes.
How do you fasten the joystick in there?
Good question. I don't actually fully remember. It was probably like something under it. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't look like it's fastened. I think more than so. I didn't care about the joystick as much. I cared more about the buttons, I think. So that's probably why it's probably not in there.
Because I want to do this often in early prototypes, but I always struggle to make the joystick feel good. So
Mhm. Oh yeah, no. If you're trying to get the joystick to feel good, no. I was not doing that with this. I did it with this one. Like that's when I knew that. But for me, it was the spacing of the buttons. That's kind of what I wanted more than anything.
That's the way to do it. Just wedge it in off the pegboard, and you can cut a small hole for the joystick, and then use the screws to fasten through the holes that are already there in the
Yeah, that
pegboard.
makes sense.
Not trying to give him any ideas.
No, please give him those ideas.
I mean, honestly, it's for that whatever you have around you kind of thing.
I found cigar boxes are actually pretty good.
Cigar. So I tried cigar boxes too. Yeah. Yeah. I forgot why I didn't use. It's you have to pick the like cigar boxes. Like they could be thin and stuff like that, so it's hard to find four that are all matching. But cigar boxes are one that I recommended for like building your own fight stick or whatever.
You're very ugly.
Hey, it works. If it
Yeah,
works, it's not
exactly,
ugly.
exactly.
And no one is looking at it. People are looking at the game. What was I gonna say? Honestly, maybe there could be a follow-up for what I learned from building a full arcade cap, but I feel like someone here could probably give a better talk than me. I think I'm still learning some lessons like labels and buttons, stuff like that, but again, I'll see you in next Bumble Bash with that.
I guess I wanted to know about that because a lot of people in the space are like, they're scared to build that first cabinet because there's a lot of work that goes into it. So,
Yeah.
did you build that one from scratch, or was that like a shell of the whole cabinet?
No. Okay, so I feel like so there was one picture that I missed. This one was from scratch. So I'll tell the kind of spill the beans on this one. So the one that is at Abari and still is, that one is an NBA Jam cap. So, and the reason why is because NBA Jam has kind of like a similar layout. And again, that's me walking into an arcade into an arcade, seeing all the games, really studying the craft, seeing what is done already. And there are some things that I don't like about NBA Jam, which is probably was limitations of like the size of the joystick. So like some of the sticks are like shifted to the
Player
side.
board, it's terrible, yeah.
And it was made so it would sit at the end of like a other arcades, and it was sit there. Yeah, that we don't have those limitations anymore. So honestly, we don't have to stick to like that stuff. So I was able to build my the cap with a better layout. But to go back to it, so it's an NBA Jam. Threw in like a computer into it. I took the control panel out, wired it at home. Terrible work on soldering and all of that, but it worked. Looked like a mess. Never soldered anything before. Did all of that, then brought back the control panel, and I mean at that point I knew it was working. Plugged it in, and of course had some issues. One of my favorite bugs was it was giving away free coins every time it was going to one screen. So that was one issue. The other issue is the coin ops piece. I didn't test it enough. Coin ops works as like it's always connected. So it's like smaller things like that, but by the time I got like there, and I didn't have time because I was again working 8 to 5. So it's things like Indigenous Day where I would like the bar would open. Sorry, I would be off so I can take the day in the morning and kind of go in and do stuff. There's all those holidays that kind of works out. But yeah, so it was a cab that was like refurbished pretty much, but it was like just the wood, and I just wanted it to work to prove the concept that as an arcade it works, you can accept money and so on.
Would you recommend that as like the ideal path for someone that's
I
building a
think,
game?
yeah.
Like at least for the first one?
Yeah, I would say yes, but it really depends on what you have access to, right? Like if that's all you have, then yes, you don't want to have the stuff for it. But yeah, I would recommend that actually as a start, and then once that is proven, then you can figure out the non-game stuff that is like that you will have to have. Like I didn't have sound in the game for so long, and no one heard it, no one cared about it. But once I started building this cab, and I was like, okay, I'm going full size now. There's some expectations like sound, art on the side, and you want it to look beautiful and so on. But yes, I would recommend for me, yes, I would recommend like getting a cab that looks like the one that you want and just starting with that. But at the same time, if you are starting with a unique control, then it's just a control panel. Then you will start with what you have and go from there as well. Yeah, that's what I would say. Mark?
So that second location that took the bar top that was set to free play, when you built them a full cab, was that coin op? And then did that change anything about that?
Okay, so the second place, it was Transmission Arcade. Yeah, so that one, it was free play. I was not able to get it on coins. And yeah, that was kind of odd, right? Because I was noticing kids, when I would go, noticing kids not playing anything else, just playing the free one. So if I was not close with the owner and so on, they probably might have been like, hey, this game is free, we don't want it, right? But I think they knew me, so it was kind of like they knew me enough to be like, oh, cool, it's a local game dev who's building something in the Carolinas. And I do say my game built in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's no other arcade dev in the area. So it's like when they see that, they're like, okay, people always want to support indie, by nature. They want to support the small person, right? So when they see stuff like that, they're not gonna care if it's gonna make money or not, because they just know that it's gonna be unique enough. So is there a follow up?
No. I was just wondering, if it went to coin op, do you have a different relationship with that place?
Yeah. I mean, again, that's kind of the hard business piece. I'm still taking the hit. So I took the hit enough, right? A lot of the stuff that I did has been me spending my own money, but honestly, so I guess it's one of those, I am fortunate to have the money to be able to spend money on computers, parts, and stuff like that, prototype, and there's a lot more that is just sitting, not being used. And then my goal is now to just honestly break even and start making a little bit, and to be able to make enough to motivate myself to actually work on this, right? As a passion project, I can only have so much passion before that runs out, right? So I am breaking even and trying to make. So with this one, I will also want to say one of the owners is also an artist. He has some doodles on the menu, and I told him hey, do you do art? And he was like, yes. And we kind of became close friends. We played video games together. So I kind of gave him a better deal because he did the art for this, which is, again, it's really hard to price art. Question?
Do you have a LLC, or is this just under you?
Oh gosh, asking real questions. Yes.
So you do, okay.
So now I do have an LLC.
Okay.
Now I do. But it's and should I have done it sooner? Yes, but it's that's the boring part about game development. But it is painful. When it was just an arcade cab that was sitting in Abari and it was just people playing it, I think that was peak for me. And then once it turned into oh, more people want this, I'm part of me is oh yes, this is awesome, I'm selling another one. The other part is I have to actually build one now. And that's why I say I don't sell it, I build it, is because really to this point I'm still grinding at it. But yeah, I did end up making it an LLC this year, so still have and opened the bank account. and have a credit card, and I still have yet to use it. But
And I am just curious more about people here with arcades if they have LLCs to protect themselves, because that is really important in, you know, video games. And I don't know if putting arcade machines, like if you do go under or something like that, at least it protects you from people suing you your own personal.
it's so I'll quickly say yes. That's a big thing, and it's again I'm still treading slowly. That's why I talked to Joe, and we were talking about actually a cab that I was selling. It was like that's kind of like I want to move fast, but I don't want to move too fast for my own good, my own sanity. I'm still a very anxious person and all that. But yeah, LLC is important, but it won't come in at the time, right? For me, I pushed it all the way at the end. Like now that I'm actually done with the game and I know it's good and everything, now it's worth it to like talk about the business boring piece, right? But yeah, LLC is important and it helps with taxes and stuff like that. I don't know, I haven't done them yet, but it will help with taxes and write-offs, and then I'll be able to actually know how much I spent from my own pocket compared to for the game. So if someone else has a better answer on that, probably.
Zach said you have 5 cabs soon, so if you want one.
Sure. Okay. Sure. I'll try to get you one then. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, because I just messaged him.
Yeah. Well, he texted me as well. So that's how it goes, honestly. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a small network. I didn't even know that you know Zach, right?
Oh my god,
So-
I've known Zach since before when he first started getting games together.
Okay.
It's been a long time. I've known the tech that works for Zach for a long time.
Okay.
I told him he needed your game like 2 years ago. So
I mean,
I
yeah.
have no words.
And the funniest thing is at MagFest, I talked to someone else about your game and I thought it was you, and you were like, "No, I can't sell it to you now. It got to go to Zach." And it wasn't you. It was someone else that I was playing with on your game at MagFest.
That's funny.
Yeah, I bring a lot of games at MagFest. So when you introduced yourself to me the first time, I was like, "Wait a minute, what?" It was very shocking.
Funny. Yeah, but again, like this is a good example of like how sales happen, how business happen, right? It's like I know I'm not a confident person again, but I know the game is at a good place. I know the confident the game is good. I know that when it goes to someone who's taking a risk on me, that I can give them my best, right? And it's just stuff like that, and it's all just networking. So also thank you, Bumble Bash, for helping me sell the first cab, I guess. Well, one of the cabs.
Yep.
But yeah. We'll get you one.
I was gonna support you no matter what, brothers.
I appreciate it. There you go. That doesn't sound better than that.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Any questions? Anything? Yeah.
On behalf of Abby, have you thought about stats?
Ooh, stats.
Oh, it's a whole other seminar.
Yes, I log everything. Again, this kind of comes in from the background. I used to actually not do it as much, and then I would be in this like big fun high of like the game and the convention. The convention ends, and I'm like, did people like the game? And so now I log how many games are being played, and now I have to commit to it. Now that's gonna be on tape. But I do want to have a screen that shows like stats for like passes, mistakes, kind of like a sports thing. So yes, I will add stats. Abby, yes, I told Abby I'm gonna talk to you because we need to figure out what is going on here. I think there's something bigger actually that Abby's up to with like online stats keeping that I think indie arcades could actually use if we could figure out like some kind of a system or something. I think that would be cool. Yeah. Good question. Love it.
Is this your first game?
Yes. If you want to cut like finished, right? But I've been wanting to build games since I was like 15, legit. So it's kind of like becomes the question of like I love video games so much that like I prototype mechanics here and there and then just drop them off. So I have a lot of those unfinished stuff, right? And that's why I mentioned the thing earlier. Like one game that I built was when I was 15 was I do it all in Paint, and it was like inside of like a spaceship. It wasn't even a full game, but it was made in PowerPoint. Literally, PowerPoint. It was you would click on the door, and then the door would be a box, and it would take you to a different screen. So it's almost like a Myst situation. So to say this is my first game is like yes, I would say this is the first official game, but it is not in a way. So Yeah,
I like the story.
well, appreciate it. And I'm here, so and play crab volleyball against me if you want. So,
Thanks so much.
thank you.